Blog Talk Radio.
Hey guys, this is Those Guys with your host Matt Marrero, along with your other host Satish Ram, who I believe is in right now. Satish Ram, if you're in the chat, please speak.
Hi, I'm here, and I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, now if anyone's wondering, I don't think there was any problems here. I don't think there were any problems on screen because I called with 5 seconds spare. But at my end, it seemed as if there were problems. Basically what we're doing here is I am editing a video that will be released, or no, depending on when this episode is out, has already been released, actually. No, it really is. No, because I don't know when this is coming out, to be fair. Because, of course, this week, as you've noticed, if you follow our Those Guys Play channel, I'm doing Misao with a new series that we're doing just called Matt Beats Games. I usually do a series called Matt Beats Games from his childhood, where I play games from my childhood, but I didn't play Misao when I was a kid. I played it when I was a teen. So Misao, which I don't know if you've played it, Satish, but basically the game consists of you go to a school where you are transported with your classmates to a different world, and apparently it's because of the curse, the grudge, of a classmate of yours who seemed to have went missing 2 months ago. So now you're finding her dead body parts, like in a weird, like you have to collect them or something, like a sick and twisted game of Pokemon. So I'm playing that right now. So I'm editing the video that will be released, or has already been released, most likely. So yeah, that is what I'm doing. And now I have to transition from that into the wonderful beautifulness that is Steven Universe Season 3, Episodes 1 to 3. And by the way, Satish, I don't know if it's because I haven't seen New Steven Universe in a while, but it was amazing.
Yeah, it's
like how good was
refreshing
Season 3
for me
so far?
to go back and just watch Steven Universe because just based on the release schedule, us not podcasting, and a couple of other things, and, of course, my memory.
Yeah, my question to
it's like
you
watching
is...
it for the first time.
Yeah, no, my question to you, I know that you've been missing some episodes. I don't think you were... Are you fully caught up with Steven
Yeah,
Universe?
I'm fully caught up.
Oh, okay. Because I know there was a point when you weren't, so I was wondering if you were still there and if you hadn't seen one of these three.
Yeah, I'm
have.
fully caught up. So everything that we do from here on out, including the last podcast that we did, I've seen before, so I'm rewatching for our podcast.
But of course...
But I usually tend to appreciate that.
Yeah, and of course, no spoilers.
Yeah, I usually tend to appreciate that because, much like Gravity Falls, it's always useful for me to get a second look at Steven Universe, not because of, like, hidden gems or something like that, no pun intended, but actually something along the lines of just enjoying the episode again, and sometimes I interpret things differently. And so we had Super Watermelon Island, we had Gem Drill, and Same Old World tonight. Those are the three that we're covering, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
Same Old World was like one of those quaint episodes that I get attachments to quaint little episodes and things like that. So that was one of the ones for me that actually stood out. And, of course, we'll talk about the plot relevance of all three and such. But I really like the subtleties in Same Old World.
Okay. Oh, yes. You know what? I would definitely give you that, most definitely. I don't know what my favorite is. That's very hard for me to choose because, I mean, the first two were amazing, obviously, for plot. And I think it's so funny because I hate to be one of those people that's like, oh, I told you so. But clearly I was right about Log Date, last episode that we did, where I was like, I don't know where you'd put Log Date. And then actually watching these episodes, because I try not to watch something twice. I love watching it twice overall, but for the podcast, I want to watch it once before the show to get that real reaction. Right? I have my notes, but I want that real reaction. So I haven't seen any of these. You're, holding things back because we're spoiler-free podcasts, other than, of course, the episodes that we're talking about. But I'm not. So I didn't realize that we'd get a full community of Watermelon Steven.
Yeah, and it's really cute because neither did Steven. I mean, talking about this stuff in order, like starting with Super Watermelon Island. The dialogue on the show is really special, and one of the things right off the bat is they get to play around with little things like that. And you can refer back to the line where he wakes up for the first time, and he's like, on Mask Island, the Watermelon Stevens, they have a lovely community. But it's like, and it's true because you're like, they really do have a lovely community.
Yes, And so for some of us that may have forgotten, and I know the fan base is hard for them to forget, but for some of us that have forgotten, when did the Watermelon Stevens appear? And they didn't appear in such like them being a huge community is a shocker, right? There weren't this many of them.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff was way back.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had the first
vaguely
episode
remember that.
where they appeared, and then there was the fact that
yes.
we realized, but then they come back, and this is the big one, where it's also a touch on, I mean, I could go, because Watermelon Steven, I think the first time it happens is season 1. I think when he actually gets that power,
Yes. Yeah, okay, yes.
Continuity is pretty impressive here, because this is the first episode
and that's why I really enjoy this show.
As we're opening up here, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are episodes, I mean, Super Watermelon Island, it's not only just the idea of continuity in the sense of what is going on with the watermelon community, but also you have the idea of Steven's powers developing, where you know that if you touch back to something like, I think it was Chilitide, where he falls asleep and he was connecting with Lapis in his dreams when they were stuck in the fusion. Now, he's actually able to actually project himself into a watermelon. Granted, it's a watermelon that arguably has his DNA, so maybe that's part of why it's easier for him. But it shows the development of his abilities.
Yes, I was so happy to see that he was able to connect to them, because I didn't know if they were trying to say that it was him projecting himself, as in like, oh, no, this isn't really happening, or him actually seeing it happen, right? And it's so funny that it's like, no, he can actually connect his consciousness to one, if not every single one. I assume not as one, because this isn't a Naruto situation, I would assume. But he can actually just, be one of them. So it was so interesting to see, because like you said, a direct connection to when he saw Malachite, a long time ago, right? Not a long time ago, but long for me anyway, during that dream funny, like, sitcom-y episode. So that was very interesting. What I think was cool, too, is just having Peridot in these 3 episodes truly be a crystal gem and understanding her role as a crystal gem, where it's just like, oh, I can't go with them. It's like, aren't you going to rebel? Isn't that your entire group's thing? And you can't, you laugh at it, but you laugh at it because it's real. You're like, oh, shit, that's true, yeah.
Of Steven going to bed, so, like, his own little loophole, like, I can listen to them and be safe and disobey them. She's like, what an anarchist. It's just, I couldn't, just the sarcasm is incredible.
Yeah. That's just, I almost forgot about that line. There was a lot of fun, because it's so true. It's just like, I'm going to rebel by sleeping. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, oh, yeah. Good job, kiddo. But I think what was so cool is, and so creative, I think, because here's the thing. A lot of times we do have battles like these where Steven just doesn't appear, right? Like, straight up just doesn't appear. So, and he's sitting at home left wondering what to do. It was so cool and creative of them not only to put him in, into the battle without him fighting, but they put him there, and then they actually had him lead a rebellion. And lead a rebellion with a language that we can't understand, but it was clearly voiced over by Steven, like the Steven's voice actor. So overall, I love the creators of the show so much. If I had enough money, we don't have enough money for anything. We had enough money to buy them a drink of their choice, even if it's milk, a drink of their choice, I would, because it is just so creative in how, this show operates. And, and of course, obviously, I don't know if I'd buy them that drink, remembering that about 2-3 times during these 3 episodes I wanted to cry, and it's their fault. But just for the sheer creativity, I just love what they do. Also, I love the design of this watermelon community, because to me, it just really brings me back to this old school Nintendo vibe. And I would say old school, because to be fair, recently, as you know, and many of our fans know, Anthony Toto and I play Animal Crossing, the original, on the GameCube, right? Or those guys play, and it's not it's not old school. It's 2001. That's not 2002. That's not that old. I'm not that old, but it's still a different. It's still like this really cool, interesting environment. That's very it makes you also think of like Super Mario Sunshine. If you ever played that, Satish, I really enjoyed the environment so much that they created for the Watermelon Stevens. Also, I love that Malekith.
Yep.
Malekith. Like, no, wait, no, got an E right. Malekith.
Malekith.
Still has Malekith still has Jasper's powers, and of course she does. She's a fusion, and Jasper's in control. But it's still really cool just to see that fighting style be pretty much the same, because again, those are her powers. It's not a fusion. It's not a true fusion, so she's not that good with Lapis's powers, you know. So I think it was very interesting to see. But still, like, I'm just such a huge fan of Steven starting this rebellion. Like, it is beautiful.
Yeah, and it was very much representative of what Steven as a character would be doing. It seems realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy the portrayal of the fact that it's not like they're speaking English, though. They're speaking watermelon growling language.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, overall, it was just so much fun, and I loved it so much. So I think that, and also, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but instead of, like, the man, at least in terms of what we would consider a
I know
man
what you're
going
about
off
to say.
war, yes, leaving the woman with the kid, it was actually, and again, I don't want to put a gender to it, but, you know, wearing what would, you know, some would consider feminine clothes, hugging one with a tie, staying with the kid like, I love you, honey. And it was just like, oh, wow, like, even little things like that where I'm just like, that's nice, it's progressive, but, you know, again, if everyone's like, oh, my God, it's over the top, it's a 1-second clip. You know what I mean? Like, it's just also, by the way, their fighting style was brilliant, because I know they weren't going to kill her or, you know, take her down, but they kind of technically, we're going to be technical here, took her down like she tripped. They took her down. And it was just so interesting to see, you know, like just them punching her in the eye, because it's like, right, they're small enough and she's big enough to get punched in the eye. But it brings you back to that old adage, you can't train your eyes. You know, like you can train muscles, you can train so many things, but it's like the crotch and the eyes, you can't lift weights. You know what I mean? You can't, like, shield those, really.
I've never heard that adage
used
in that sense. I'm really glad.
What? Oh, I've heard, because I've seen, I don't know what I've seen, but I've seen some kind of, like, either movie or anime or something like that where it's like, oh, no, you can't train your eyes. And, like, someone gets punched or poked in the eye, and it's like, damn it, that's true. Like, yes, you could wear visors and stuff like that. Again, that's not natural, right? But naturally, right, you lift, you know, you get your muscles big. Oh, yeah, I'm so tough. Poke a guy in the eye, he's fucked.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Same thing with the crotch, but, I mean, I don't think they're going to go for that. I think they're going to go for the eye. But, yeah, overall, I really loved this episode, and I think the way they ended the episode was so sad. And I'm pretty sure this was a two-parter, right?
Yeah, Gem Drill came right after Super Watermelon Island.
Like the day after or the same day?
No, like directly after. It was two-part in the same day.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the reason why I say that it makes sense. Oh, by the way, I love how each and every Watermelon Steven is clearly Steven. And I say that even though it's not his consciousness, like Steven isn't every single one at the same time, you can tell that they're Steven because of their mannerisms when Garnet congratulates them.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single one, the way they said, like one of them was like, oh, Garnet. And that's what Steven has done before throughout the show. So they made sure to pick every single little thing that Steven has done and have it be like a Steven type. It was so interesting. But anyway, so I just wanted to say that the ending of the episode really struck a chord with me. Just fading to black and then having I Love You be the softest. Like I was hoping they would have her say it. And then they did. And I was like, oh, my God. Like it was just so quiet at the end there. And then the episode ends. It was beautiful, man.
Yeah, and I loved the idea of, I love the transition between the two, where it was the direct, like, right into.
Yes, right into the next episode. That was so beautifully done. But, so anyway, before we finish this, though, I really want to hear you, if there's anything you want to say about this episode, before we move on to episode 2, which is Gem Drill. Is there anything you really want to say, anything that comes up?
No, I enjoyed the fight between Malekith and between, Alexandrite? Am I going to?
Yes. I'm nodding, so it's canon now. Because I agreed, it's canon.
Okay.
Regardless of the actual canon.
So, Yeah, it was actually really fun to watch that fight, and it was, I thought, well thought out because the arrow in the first place was looking to try to kill them, blocked it with water and ice, but in the air they can't get something up high enough, so they have to take the blow full on.
Mm-hmm.
And they were already weakened because they took a straight punch. Like, I love the way the fight worked too. It just was really fun to watch because it's coming from someone who enjoys big battles like mecha fights and things like that, or big anime fights.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun anytime one's done quickly, because I come from watching genres that took a long time to do these kind of things. And that's okay because it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're working with an 11-minute show that's episodic in this sense here, you got to get it done quickly. So they did a really good job of making the fight seem intense, but also wrapping it up very quickly. And I liked that.
Yes, I agree. It was a lot of fun. I'll just say that. It was a lot of fun, and, you know, that's what I love about this show, is that even if they're going to sit there and go, oh, it's a two-parter, so technically it's 22 minutes instead of the 11, technically, they still do it in a way that just works. It just resonates with me very well, right? And we talked about this, just getting shit done. Right, like this show gets shit done.
Also,
right? Because you could have sat there. Please go on.
Go on.
I was going to say, you could have sat there and extended this cluster thing for another half a season. Like, American television has no problem with extending shit far past anyone wants to see. Or they'll sit there and go, you know, I like Steven Universe overall, so, you know, I'm sure it'll get back to plot soon. This is nice. No, it's just, all right, good. We wrapped up that season 2, and emergency cluster! And it's like, oh, my God! Like, it woke me up. I was like, not that I was asleep at all, but I was just, like, mentally. It was kind of like, oh, my God, we're here. Oh, my God, we're here. Oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit. Red alert, guys. We're at the fucking cluster.
Yeah.
But, so that was
also, shining point of that episode before we move on to Gem Drill is that when Malachite is taken down, Watermelon Steven has giant star eyes.
Yes, very true.
Which is a cute little reference to Steven's star eyes when he has a moment.
Right, yeah. Yes. But, so let's move on to this may be my favorite, you know, which is Gem Drill. Now, first off, I just love the fact that Peridot she literally asked if she's the only one who understands teamwork. And I never wanted to hit a character before that badly. Like, not like a bad hit, just like a playful, like, smack in the back of the head. Like, I've never wanted to do that to a character watching a TV show that bad. Like, my God. Just like, I'm happy she's with the team now, but it's like, you are way too new to say, really? Teamwork, guys, come on. But something I do like, and this is something so small, but it made me, you know, I started thinking about it. And I don't know if you noticed this. So Peridot put elevator music in the drill, which is something that's funny, right? You're like, that's funny. But she knows about music because of Steven. So she put music in there, possibly just for Steven. Like, that little shit like that is really cute to me. Like, oh, my, because in my head it's like, all right, it's funny, but if they never had the discussion about music, it would have been weird and off-putting. Like, it would have been funny, but you kind of, with how much this show, you know, with how in-depth the show is, like Gravity Falls, you know, we always bring up those comparisons, it would have been weird to me if it's just like, oh, okay, so I guess Peridot picked up what music was, like elevator music or something. But it's like, no, like Steven mentioned to her a few episodes back, oh, hey, this is what music is. And now in her own little drill, she just has, you know, like elevator music. Also, apparently, not a big enough drill for everyone to fit in. So very plot convenient that only the two of them were there. It's just like, how are you going to get the rest of them in here? They'd shrink or something. Like, it's great. Like, Peridot's smart, but she isn't, you know, she's smart in terms of like, oh, I can make the machine. But it's obvious that she's not going to sit there and think of every little logistical thing about seating, because it's not about seating to her, you know? It's about, like, is the drill functional? Yes. Great. You know? So I like that. Like, it's not like all the bells and whistles are needed, although apparently it needed an artillery. But that's like, I love it. They have a barn full of random equipment, and she made a fucking bazooka. Or a laser beam, whichever you want to look at it as.
There's a D-pad.
But anyway, so what did... Yes. Oh, the N64 controller.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a bit too excited. Oh, my God. But anyway, so what's your take? Before we get to some of the scarier stuff of the episode, what's your take on it thus far?
I really enjoyed the mushy shit in the sense of...
No,
I did. Like Peridot just sitting there, like, the Earth will perish. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you or the many other life forms I don't care about nearly as much. Like, knowing that, like, who, the situation here and who Peridot is, that is an incredibly loving sentiment.
Or even just Peridot kind of feeling nostalgic for a home planet that technically wasn't a home. It's interesting. And I say that simply because she has no memories of it other than just, I existed. Right? Like, I ended up existing, and that was that. Right? And then of course I had to follow orders, and that's my life. Right? So even though it wasn't really a home for her when compared to the Earth, just like Lapis in episode 3, they both long for something that really, truly isn't a home, but it's all they've ever known. So it's so interesting to kind of see that conflict, that inner turmoil in both of them. And I hope that over the next season, I'm assuming, we're going to get to see more of that and see how the two of them interact because, not jumping episode 3 just yet, but just a little obvious nod because you've seen the episode. They know each other. Their paths have crossed, which is pretty interesting. But what I do, getting to some of the more creepy stuff in this episode, every time these things are introduced, they both get creepier. These forced gem fusions, these shard fusions, they get both creepier, and you start feeling, sentimental towards them. Like, I've never seen both happen, right, simultaneously. Like, it's not like you're going to see a new Jason movie, right, new Friday the 13th. You're going to be like, man, he's as creepy as he's ever been, if not worse, but I feel so bad for the guy. Like, that's usually not the case, especially when you see villains appear again and again and, in quote-unquote sequels or things like that. Like, every time you see a new Friday the 13th, every mention Friday the 13th, sorry. Every time you see a new Nightmare on Elm Street, you're not just like, man, I feel so bad for that child molester. No, you're like, burn him again. I don't know what's worse, the child molestation or the puns. Just burn him again. Right? Like, that's your thoughts on Freddy, right? You don't sit there and go, man, poor guy. It's not what you really do. So the fact that you can see these shards and both sit there and think, man, I feel bad for them, but also, dear God, they're basically giant hands coming out of a wall. It's horrifying. It's horrifying, but, man, does it make so much sense that Steven would be the one to try to communicate with them once Peridot said they're technically sentient?
Yeah, so that interaction, the short interaction between Steven and Peridot throughout that was really powerful. And so as somebody who doesn't really toy into horror movies because they don't mess with me.
Scare you.
Yeah, I like horror games, as you can see on our YouTube channel, because I really, really
Those
like what they're doing with the new Resident Evil, as you can see with me and Matt. But now, you look at something like this, and it actually does get to me, and I appreciate that. Not in the sense like, oh, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night, but there is a noticeable emotional reaction, just the depiction of what's going on with the cluster. Like, I felt bad when Steven felt bad. When they were drilling into the cluster and he looked like he was in pain, and then he had the visualization of, like, these souls going up. It's a strong moment, and I respect that because it was very painful to have to sit there and think, why is Steven hurting? Is he communicating? Is he feeling pain from this? And then you have the conversation that ensues between Steven and arguably the cluster, and it's very, very jarring because you think back to all the stuff the show has told us, about broken gems and how not like cracked gems, but like gems that were ripped apart and forced together. They just want to form. So that's why you have these, like, chimera, and I mean chimera in the bad way, like the bad experiments from Fullmetal Alchemist Chimera, you know, these like monster creatures that are essentially out there who are not formed correctly or deformed or extremely angry and in pain because they take this form, but that's not what they wanted. They wanted a form because they needed a form. That is their gem sentience. That's all they need. But this is the form they wanted. It's not who they are. So they're uncomfortable, or they're in pain, or they're suffering. So you finally get the mindset here of a direct communication of a gem, like who is shattered or like forced into this cluster. And he points it out too, like, wow, how one-track minded you are. And it's supposed to be somewhat of a like line that you kind of chuckle at, like, but it's evident that like they don't have that much thought. Contrastingly, the fact that they were able to start bubbling each other and help Steven out shows that they do have thought. So it's really just the idea that they're suffering. They're available to think and communicate, but they're suffering. It's the idea of like not even just so much pain. You just want to get it away. You want to form thinking that'll get it away, but you're able to think. So that's a really sad thought and representation of where we are in the show. And
well, one thing I want to say, and this is something that I really did enjoy, is that, of course, you could have just not mentioned that in the show, right? It could have just not mentioned Steven. Like, it could have not mentioned, rather, that they're that sentient, right? But if it's going to mention it, if this matters later, if this really did matter, well, then they had to mention that. And frankly, I'm happy that, so they mentioned that. Then, of course, the next thought is, well, then Steven has to do something to help them. Because Steven, it would be completely against his character. Now, of course, there's a chance that, maybe I don't help them, and maybe the show takes a darker turn. And that could have happened. Or rather, I can't help them, even though I'm trying-ish. But no, he full-on tried his hardest. And it's just one of those situations where, like, it just makes a lot of sense. Because you look at, like, let's say look at Kingdom Hearts. And the problem is that I'm only using Kingdom Hearts as one example, but shows do this a lot, sadly. You look at Kingdom Hearts, right? And I don't know if you've never played Kingdom Hearts, right? You've seen
I have
clips,
not.
And you know the general story.
Yeah.
Generally. Okay. So when Sora gets turned into a Heartless, thankfully they were able to hug it out and he turned back into Sora. And that was really sweet and that was really comforting. However, that is the point where Sora learns, oh shit, Heartless can potentially be sentient, just like me. Oh my god, we need to save these Heartless. No, actually I'm going to keep on mowing them the fuck down. So, yeah, this is Sora we're talking about here. Sora's pretty chill. Good guy, good kid, right? I don't know what's going to happen in Kingdom Hearts 3, but I mean, like, Sora's not the worst. Sora is so good that even his digital clones in, like, fucking other video games, and I'm not going to talk about which games, I don't want to get into spoilers, but, digital clones are still just as nice as him. Like, pieces of him, fake pieces of him are nicer, or as nice. So, he's not bad, but they didn't care about that narrative. Like, let's keep on killing these Heartless. Right? I can't think of any shows, but I'm sure that there are other shows where it's just like, oh, hey, technically, look at something like Kamen Rider Wizard, right? Kamen Rider, Japanese superheroes, not going into that right now. But technically, and you learned this in the first few episodes, so it's not a spoiler, the bad guys are made from people that were once living, and now they're not anymore. Now they are the bad monsters, right, who can still turn into their human forms, but they're not the people they once were, right? Now, I'm not saying there's any way to help them, but the show basically straight out says immediately, they used to be those guys, but, I mean, they're not now, so just kill them. You got to do it, man, because they're going to try and make the other people who have the potential to turn into monsters and kill them. We can't have that happen, so we have to kill these guys first. It's too late, man. Sorry, it's too late. It's like, Jesus, that's a depressing way to look at it. And mind you, it's a whole show that's centered around hope and magic.
Mm-hmm.
But the main point of the thing, the way it starts off is, no, it's about hope and magic. If you hope, you believe, don't worry, you can succeed. But these guys are already fucked, though. They're dead. There's no hope for that. It's like, Jesus. So I really enjoy that they sat back and were like, look, it's kind of like what would Jesus do? What would Steven do? Right? In kind of this, this character that they made, and they're not trying to betray that character. And I appreciate that a lot. So, that's something that I think I really enjoyed. And he's so infectious, right? His energy is so infectious that they were starting to bubble themselves, which is something that I'm pretty sure it should not happen. Like, I didn't realize all gems could bubble, but I'm pretty sure shards of shards of shards of shards shouldn't be able to just bubble that much,
I didn't know
again,
that
that's
could
the
happen.
power of Steven. Yeah, but that's the power. Neither could Steven, neither could anyone. But you know what? That's the power of Steven, and clearly, we don't know much about Rose, but from what we do know thus far, and I'm sure with what we're going to learn as the season goes on, he's Rose's kid. That's something, that kind of energy, that kind of passion, that's something that Rose and Greg make. It's just the two of them. It's sweet. But yeah, so please, anything else you want to say about this episode before we move on? The floor is yours. I've ranted long enough.
I think that covers the idea of what was important to me about Gem Drill. I'm thinking back, I'm like, no, they jumped in, they drilled, they talked. We're good. No, yeah, I think we're good.
Well, no, that's 11 minutes right there. They jumped in, they drilled, they talked. I mean, that's just the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something interesting, I thought that the Gems are going to be the one to save Steven. And I think that's a great, we talk about progression in the show. We talk about Steven actually being like a human being, right, having responsibilities and growing. And it's so nice to have him be the one to stop the cluster.
He bubbled the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah, and then Peridot giving a summary of said events, which was great. And Steven was like, my feelings. Thank you, Peridot. Thank you so much. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And also, I do think that this was a nice episode, right, which is Same Old World, to kind of, in a way, take a break. Now, I don't like the word take a break because, of course, Lapis is going to matter so much over the next season. I can already tell that there's no reason for, them to not have an episode on her. But the reason why I'm saying take a break, because, of course, it's like, okay, good, the cluster is quote-unquote bubbled. It's quote-unquote safe. So as of right now, it's like, yeah, let's just focus on, on Lapis and bring her into their world. Because you realize at the end of the episode, like, oh, damn, that's right. Lapis doesn't know that Peridot exists in on Earth right now.
Mm-hmm.
All Lapis knows is I'm not really a big fan of the gems. I was left here. I kind of want to go back. I want to go somewhere else. Like, I thought Lapis was going to go back to the moon. So I was like, oh, damn, Lapis left. That sucks, but all right, we'll move on. And it's like, no, she wants to go back to Homeworld, but she knows that if they believe she's a traitor, like if word got back, oh, no, that Lapis, she was a traitor, even though she wasn't, she has no place. She'll be destroyed. So she really doesn't have anywhere else to turn. So, I don't know, like seeing Lapis and seeing Steven reconnect, and definitely having us reconnect with a character that we haven't seen for a very long time. This was a very smart episode.
I loved it. This was my favorite of the three.
Yeah.
And it's the subtleties. I mean, Lapis is one of my favorite characters. Lapis and Greg are probably my favorite characters. And, one of probably my favorite part of this episode was when they panned over New York, or Empire City as it is in their world. And
I love Jersey.
That was hilarious to me, only because of the whole, you would probably fit in here. The people here seem to hate Earth as much as you do. And I was like, good
and then the shoe.
God, take a shot at Jersey, will you? But,
well, you know what I love in both shows, right? It seems like they've created brand new worlds, right? Even though it's only towns. But they've created brand new worlds, and yet there's always Jersey. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, you ever see, shows that talk about multiverses, like animated, or just general, fictional shows. There's always one thing that's, permanent. Like, oh, there's always a version of me, right? Or, oh, there's always Jersey. No matter where you look, it's coming up Jersey. Oh, by the way, the traffic was hilarious. I was just like all I could hear is Superintendent Chalmers' voice from Simpsons. When he says Skinner?
Mhm.
Like, Skinner, I heard that, but I heard Christy. Just all that traffic. I was like, damn it, Christy, not again.
But there's a lot of traffic, as Lapis says. It might be populated by machines.
Also, a lot of smog.
Mhm.
Oh, I was worried when they brought up the smog. I was like, and this is where Lapis turns evil. Like, why are they polluting on this earth? And she didn't. And I was like, oh, thank God. She's so happy that Steven's happy. She's just not giving a shit. I was like, thank you. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
But, yeah. Also, just Steven talking to her about technology. Like, my phone has a GPS. She's like, thank you.
Mhm.
Like, she doesn't get shit. I love it. Like, he's explaining, you mentioned Empire City, right? You were saying that the music changed and how, I know you're going to say how wonderful it looked, especially at night. Very smart of them to choose, to see it at night. And it was just so funny because, him mentioning, like, just standard TV tropes. I don't mean that as the website. I just mean actual tropes, like, oh yeah, you're gonna be a single girl taking on the city in an apartment with a roommate. She's like, Steven, I don't know anything that you're talking about. And just his reaction, just so sad. He watches so much TV, so sad. Oh man, it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so you were mentioning though Empire City. What else would you like to mention in regards to the design and the setup?
Not only the beauty, but the music was really there for me, and I really loved it because every time, and this is something I've always appreciated about a lot of television, they portray New York as like old New York. So they go over like the bright lights, and then you get like this swing music or big band, and it's really nice, like Sinatra-esque music. And I always appreciate when shows take the time to make that portrayal. And so Empire City is really nice in that regard to me in Jersey, and just overall, I really enjoy the perspective this episode provided because you had Lapis sitting there thinking about how much time she spent on Earth because she has been quote unquote trapped there. As she was, on the mirror. But she's never really been on Earth. She doesn't know anything about it. And her looking at the leaves, it was a really nice... I just loved the message behind this episode. I loved them sitting there and telling her, like, but everything is changing on Earth. Nothing is still. And I thought that was really beautiful, and I guess that really speaks to me, which is why I look back, and this is one of the episodes that really... resonates with me, really sticks with me, that I really enjoy watching, and I've seen multiple times because it's true. I mean, we, especially living here in New York, speaking for myself, nothing is still in New York, and that's kind of cool, and it's the realization of where you are, what's going on, and I like that a lot. I really do, and I like seeing Lapis's realization, and that goes without discussing the fact that there was a darker side of this episode where they detailed her backstory and what happened to her. And that was
like,
really
oh
sad.
My God.
Yeah, and see, they mistook her.
Yeah, clarification. We knew she was left. We just don't know why. Like, we knew, her saying, I was abandoned, and then I was found by the gems, these evil gems. So she didn't like the gems, but she was found and all that stuff. But now we know, okay, this is exactly how it happened. Which is so interesting because I do wonder why Pearl and the rest didn't think of her as a gem. I really do wonder why they didn't realize that. They were just like, oh, that's just some old item. Like, that's very interesting. Like, I want to see more about Pearl's realization in regards to, like, her saying, like, oh, I thought she was, broken as in, like, she wouldn't be able to function. I'm more curious to see her explanation and her reasoning behind just picking up the mirror, seeing the gem, and just kind of taking it away and not really doing much with it. Also, it does really suck that she was mistaken because, my God, like, it's crazy to me because unless their ranks grew larger and then we just haven't seen some of them, right, there's only 3 of them. Like, during the war, there was Garnet, there was Pearl, and there was Rose. Amethyst wasn't born yet. So, like, what I mean is, unless there's more of them we haven't seen yet, which can totally happen, right? There could have been other casualties. But as of right now, there was 3 of them, so it's crazy to think, oh, no, now there is 4. Oh, no. Like, it's just crazy. Like, it really sucks that she was caught up that way.
Mhm.
Because it's not even like there were that many rebels, according to the show right now. Right? So it really is sad, to have that happen to her, because I know she isn't aristocracy exactly, but she isn't Joe Schmo. Like, she clearly had never seen a battlefield in her life. She just wanted to visit a new planet.
Mhm.
Before it got destroyed. But, whatever. That's just a minor thing. Before it got colonized. But, we're not there. We're not. She just wanted to see the planet, all right? She wanted to see how it would look.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That worked out nicely.
Very sad. Yeah, it did, right? Just for her. Just don't travel. Even though the entire theme of the episode was travel, the Earth is wonderful. Nope, but that backstory says don't travel.
Yeah, no, it was, but I really enjoyed that, basically, I guess because I'm a real big Lapis fan. And I also enjoy her interactions with Steven as much as I do Peridot with Steven, because it's clear that they have an attachment, not necessarily to the crystal gems, but to Steven. Peridot and Lapis, in that sense, have that in common, where they're really attached to Steven, but they're not necessarily attached to the gems. Now, clearly Peridot's more close to them now, and over time that's developed, especially because you look at something like Log Date, which we just talked about, and you saw that Peridot was bonding with Garnet and just trying to talk with them, and was also close with Amethyst before. Pearl and Peridot have a mutual respect, so you can assume Lapis will go through a similar type of situation, but she's also less. It's funny, Peridot is social and willing to communicate. Lapis isn't. Lapis is more of an introvert. Peridot was a misplaced extrovert. Lapis is an introvert who's also among people that she doesn't feel comfortable with. But she really, really loves Steven. And, it's a strong, when you think back to, again referencing the episode Chillyteed, but when Steven has a conversation with Lapis, she brushes him off by saying, let me do this for you. And Lapis clearly cares a lot about Steven and shows who she really is to him. And even the laughter, the happy side, when they were flying above the stars after Jersey and all that, Steven comments about how beautiful it is. And she just smirks at him it's okay. And it's nice, the way that she's herself with Steven. And I really appreciate that.
One thing I want to say that's interesting is how they animated her wings. And I only say that because it's just a very interesting, I think, take on, because it looks like you would animate normal wings, but of course they're water wings, which is a weird sentence when they're actually wings made of water. So I think it was very interesting to see how they animated those, just putting that out there. I know it might seem strange, but just mid-flight, it was interesting how, they flapped, but nothing moved necessarily. I know some people might not like that because they might want a more fluid animation, but it's very interesting to see that because, it's water, she controls it. So it's not like it's going to be, moving a lot. No, she controls it, and she can turn it into ice. So it's very interesting to see how she flies through the sky with those water wings. God, it's so weird to say water wings when they're actually wings made of water. But yeah, this isn't my favorite episode. I want to say it was Gem Drill, just because of the creepiness factor, but also the understanding and the love going along with it. But overall, the show has really made me love Steven more and more and more. Where I think just, in saying, who's your favorite character? I think immediate number one that we have to just kind of toss aside because he's always going to be number one is just Steven. I don't know, just the way he's growing and the way everyone can just connect with him almost automatically. It's just such a beautiful thing to see. So that's what I have to say about it. But, so this was an amazing 3 episodes. Really happy to be doing them with you. Really happy to be watching Steven Universe again. And it's sad only because we have to do other podcasts. And we also have lives overall. But Steven Universe. So that's going to be hard to juggle because, Steven Universe. So not sure what we're going to do there.
We'll figure it out.
I said not sure what we're going to do there. Oh, okay, sorry. You turned nice too quickly. I thought we were going to keep it going. You immediately folded. I'm like, now I'm sorry. Now I'm the ass. which is new. But anyway, so I want to thank you all for listening in, as always. Before we wrap things up, again, just, balls in your court, Satish, anything you want to say about these 3 episodes before we finalize anything?
How do I make a fart noise like they did to Jersey?
Oh, you put your hand over your mouth and you just kind of blow? Or you just do a raspberry.
There we go.
There you go. You did it. He did
Fart
it.
noise.
Have you never done that before? Oh, God.
No.
I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm great.
Good stuff. Happy to hear it.
I've never felt
So I
better.
want to thank you all. I don't know about that. I think you're being facetious. Now, I don't know where that word came from. But anyway, so I want to, again, thank you all for listening in, as always. And just, going to have to sadly wrap things up here. Before we do, just want to mention that we have merchandise on our website, thoseguysintheradio.tumblr.com/merchandise. So definitely check that out if you want to get some merchandise from our podcast or our Let's Plays. We mentioned a lot about our Let's Plays earlier. But speaking of our Let's Plays, again, just briefly, we have our YouTube channel, Those Guys Play, where we have Matt Beats Games, which is a new series on the channel. We have Matt Beats Games from his childhood, which is my older series that I'm still continuing, where I beat games from my childhood. And we have Those Guys Play, which currently we're filming Season 3, which will actually begin airing in January, February of next year. But it's okay, because you can still get Those Guys Play episodes, just those guys are playing different games right now, spreading out from our Season 2 and Season 1 episodes. So right now we have Those Guys Play Animal Crossing. Currently we've had Those Guys Play Pokemon come out this month, because this month, minus the Animal Crossing episodes, every video game that's coming out that we're releasing on our channel that we're playing is actually related to Halloween, because we're in October. So, because we're not doing this when it first aired, I can assure you. We're way behind. But it's okay. So, basically, it's funny, too, because it's coinciding with fall, which is going on in their season, which I don't think it aired in fall, which is kind of funny. But anyway, so we have a lot of cool, spooky stuff coming out. I know you and I, Satish, we did Those Guys Play Pokemon Lost Silver, right? Because we moved on for Uranium just for this month, just to put out Lost Silver, which, was spooky as hell, right? And also I know that you and I recorded something else, right, which I can't say what it is yet, that will be coming out this month. And we did do another episode of Whispering Willows, something we did way back in Season 1 for a Black Friday special. Black Friday specials. I don't know why we did it, but we did. So we did Whispering Willows. I think it was just a way to extend Halloween and just do something else spooky later on. So we ended up doing that, and that was a lot of fun. We did Episode 1, jumping out from what we did on Black Friday in this month of October. And, we have a lot of other cool hosts coming on, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely check that out on our YouTube channel. Definitely go to our podcast channel, Those Guys on the Radio, if you want to see some more of our podcasts. Or, of course, you can check us out, assuming you're listening to us on our Blog Talk Radio, which is Those Guys on the Radio. Or you could be listening to us through our iTunes account, which is Those Guys. And if not, search that up. Another way to listen to us, and hear our huge backload of episodes. We're already past the 300 mark. We've gotten more than 530 hours of podcast time. We've been doing this for a while, folks.